right. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Metro Board meeting and activities for February 12th, 2026. I am Walter Alcorn, Chair of the Board Safety and Operations Committee. And before we begin, I'll turn the floor over to Jamie Johnson, Metro's Chief Safety and Readiness Officer, to provide us with today's safety contact. Jamie, take it away.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Board Committee. As our region warms up after an extended period of snow and ice, we've entered a period where conditions can look safer than they really are. Across Metro Rail, Metro Bus, Metro Access and our facilities, teams are working around the clock to monitor conditions, treat surfaces and maintain a safe environment for customers and employees. But the significant amount of melting snow presents problems. While our staff are continually monitoring and remediating pooling water, for customers there is a potential for wet and sometimes slippery surfaces, which requires careful navigation. In the rail system, we're seeing an increased amount of water entering our tunnels, and while this is something we remediate and our operations team closely monitor, it's a good reminder that water and electricity, especially the third rail, don't mix. Our systems are designed with multiple layers of protection, and crews respond quickly to maintenance issues caused by water intrusion. While temperatures are warmer in the day, there is the risk in some localized spots of refreezing overnight, creating thin, hard-to-see patches of ice, commonly known as black ice, around stations, parking lots, bus stops, and walkways. We're encouraging customers to bear three simple things in mind. Number one, walk carefully on wet-looking surfaces and follow station signs and staff guidance where appropriate. Number two, use handrails when boarding buses or Metro Access vehicles or when navigating stairs and escalators. And three, if you ever see anything that doesn't look right or a Metro asset needs our attention, please speak to a Metro member of the staff or use the chat in Metro Pulse app or call our call center 202-GO-METRO, which is 202-466-3876. Early reporting helps us address these issues before they escalate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, and maybe we're going to be up in the 50s next week, and looking forward to that. So welcome again, everybody, to today's Safety and Operations Committee meeting. And since this is our first meeting of the day, I'll ask our Chief Board Affairs Officer, Ms. Ellison, to call the roll.
Chair Alcorn.
Here.
Director Weber. Here. Director Flowers.
Here.
Director Lowe.
Present.
Director McAndrew.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
All right, thank you very much. And we don't need to do anything for Director Flowers to participate remotely.
No.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so our first order of business is to approve the agenda. We have the agenda in front of us and it has been distributed. Are there any objections or objections by members of the committee to the agenda as presented? Okay, seeing none. The agenda is approved as presented. Now we have approval of minutes. We have the minutes of our January 15th meeting. Any objections to the minutes as presented? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. Okay, so let's get to the substance of today's committee meeting. We have three items today. First, we'll be receiving the quarterly service excellence report, which will review Metro's progress against its KPIs, key performance indicators, for the first half of fiscal year 2026, which covers through December 2025. Next, we're going to hear about Metro's Service Design and Excellence Program, which is a key component of Metro's refreshed strategic transformation plan. The program focuses on continuous improvement in both Metro's network and its service reliability. And then finally, the committee will receive an update on Metro's plans to enhance its learning and employee development functions through the creation of MetroU, which will build a more robust and coordinated delivery of learning across Metro, across the organization. So I'll turn the floor over now to Ms. Davis and Ms. Holt to begin today's, and I guess Ms. Holt and Mr. Webster, there we go, to begin today's presentations. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Alcorn and members of the committee and board. Again, I'm Tom Webster. I'm Executive Vice President and Chief of Planning and Performance at Metro. I'm joined this morning by my colleague Jordan Holt, excuse me, who is our Senior Director of Benchmarking and Customer Research and Performance. This morning, as the chair said, we will provide the quarterly report on service excellence key results and progress. This report covers the first 6 months of the fiscal year from July 1 through December 31st of 2025. Service excellence, as you know, is one of our 3 goals in the strategic transformation plan. Performance results we will review today track our progress towards achieving the outcomes we've identified for safety, security, reliability, and convenience. And of course, this is part of our commitment to transparency to the board and to the public and other stakeholders about how we're investing our resources and aligning with our strategic priorities. Just quickly, some highlights. First up here, so for the first half of the year, we made some significant reinvestments through the budget and service plan for FY26 in service improvements. And these are having positive impact and positive results for ridership, reliability, and customer satisfaction. This is good news, and we're recommending, as part of the FY27 proposed budget and service plan, continued reinvestment along the same lines, identifying efficiencies and reinvesting in service. Ridership growth has continued. On-time performance is up on all modes, Metro Bus, Metro Rail, and Metro Access, with the best performance in several years. And customer satisfaction remains high. Crime fell in the second quarter, and FY26 continues to be the lowest level of crime in Metro's history. Of course, the board received and committee received a detailed presentation last month about the strategies and actions leading to that progress. One area of continued focus for improvement is in reducing missed trips, which are higher than the target we set in the strategic transformation plan. With that, I'll turn it over to Jordan to review the details of the report.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. Well, it's just outside the time frame of this report. I did want to include and take a moment to give some stats about our recent response to the January snow emergency. I think this event really underscored the important role that Metro plays in regional mobility. We carried 1.6 million customers from Sunday to Thursday. This is connecting them to jobs, critical medical care, grocery stores, and schools. So that's one of the roles we play in the region, and really want to underscore that this is thanks to the effort of about 2,800 Metro staff who are working around the clock to clear the snow, operate our vehicles, and get our service back and running in some form in record time. Okay. Now back to the first half of the fiscal year. We use a suite of performance measures to track progress on our service excellence goal. And the headline is that we're making progress on over half of them. And what do I mean by making progress? So we set targets every fiscal year that aim for continuous improvement, that drive us towards the more aspirational levels of performance that we've set in our strategic transformation plan. If you see a blue dot here, that means our performance in the first half of fiscal year 26 is already at that target. We're meeting the target that we've set for the fiscal year. If you see a light orange dot, that means we're not quite at the target, but we're approaching it. And a dark orange dot means we're a little farther away than we'd like to be from the target. We also track to make sure that we are at least moving also in the right direction. I think that's particularly important for those measures where we're not yet meeting target, and that's indicated by the check mark next to it. The appendix of this report provides details on all of these performance measures, but for the presentation, I'm going to highlight a few. Happy to answer questions about anything, though. Okay, first I want to touch on 3 measures that are a focus in our refreshed strategic plan. These are access to frequent service, our average scheduled wait times, and access to destinations. As Todd mentioned, our FY26 service plan really focused on reinvesting in service. We added frequency, which reduced average wait times and improved access to destination. We implemented a new bus network at the beginning of this fiscal year, and it followed our strategy to provide good frequencies all day. And you see in the first chart that that did increase the % of customer trips that have access to our 12-minute frequent service network. On the rail side, and that also, on the bus side, decreased our average scheduled wait time by about a minute. On the rail side, a big thing this fiscal year is all our lines are running in automatic train operation, and through those faster travel times, we're also able to identify some efficiencies to reinvest in frequency. That also increased the percent of customer trips that have access to frequent service on rail, which is 6 minutes or better. It lowered the average scheduled wait time. And both of all of these changes on bus and rail increased kind of the average number of jobs, which is our proxy for destinations that customers can reach within a 60-minute time budget. The increase was about 4%. The FY27, I mentioned that the service plan has also had positive results on reliability. Rail on-time performance is the highest level that we've had since fiscal year 23, when we were running about half as much service. Automatic train operation has contributed to this because it reduces the variability in travel time between stations. You have more consistent acceleration and deceleration, so that makes us more likely to be on time. So that's been great. On bus, our OTP is the best since fiscal year 22. We saw a 1-point improvement this year compared to where we were last year. So this year we're at 76.7%, and last year we're at 75.5%. This is also a positive impact of the network redesign. When we rewrote all our schedules, we used a data-driven approach to looking at the running times and the layover times to ensure that we had sufficient time to operate all of our trips. And that is one thing behind this improvement. What's encouraging is this is a process that we are continuing. We update our schedules every 6 months. And so it's something that we've kind of built into our process, and that will continue. So customers tell us across all 3 modes that the most important things are short waits, fast travel, and reliable service. So the results viewed on the past 2 slides contribute to the results that you see here. When we look across all 3 modes, we did see an increase in customer satisfaction on Metro Rail. This was attributed to improvement in customers saying that the satisfaction with travel times. For bus and access, we've had kind of consistent results over the past several years. We're hovering just below the targets that we set for the year. Service design, reliability, and satisfaction contribute to ridership. So for the first half of fiscal year 26, ridership grew across all modes system-wide at about 3%. This pace was tempered by the federal shutdown in October and November, which also ended our 54-month streak of year-over-year growth. So if you look at that graph, you see for October and November, the black line is just below the blue line from the prior year. Rail continues to be the main driver behind this growth. When we look at fare pass usage, we see that most of the growth on rail is driven kind of by this federal return to office that happened about this time last year. Bus ridership continues to be down compared to last year. There's many kind of confounding factors behind this that we're delving into. The trends that we see system-wide most closely tie to regional economic trends. But one thing that we do see that's been interesting is that while overall ridership is down, more people are paying. Crime rate continues to be low, and perceptions of safety strong. We have almost 40% fewer crimes this year compared to last year, and the decrease is mostly consistent across all major crime types. So I've given you a lot of good news, but I wanted to highlight 2 related opportunities for improvement. These refer to bus service and are 2 key ways that our customers experience reliability. I'm confident that if we can make improvements here, we'll be able to meet our target for Metro Bus customer satisfaction. So we are not meeting our target for bus missed trips, and this impacts prediction availability. So if we miss a trip, that means we don't have predictions for it either. So operator availability is the primary driver behind the results that we're experiencing this fiscal year. We started the fiscal year about a little over 100 operators short. This is despite graduating over about 160 operators during the last two quarters of fiscal year 25, or between January and June of 2025. It's not due to a big spike in absenteeism or turnover. We have a robust forecasting model, and as a result of this, have recently doubled our class size, almost doubled our class sizes from about 50 to 90. And this is kind of a similar strategy that we've used before. And optimistically, we're looking at being on track to be fully staffed later this fall for our fiscal year 27 proposed service plan. Finally, I wanted to circle back to a topic that came up last month in this committee on January 15th when we talked about our annual safety and security report. And we talked about the impact of congestion on bus customer safety and collisions. And I offered to try and dig up some data to look into this. So the source that you see here, it's the Federal Highway Administration's Urban Congestion Report, where we're looking at, it tracks congestion quarterly over time. And when we look at that, we see that traffic congestion has increased in this region since 2022, and we're currently at about 2019 levels. This does have consequences for our ability to achieve the key results that we have under service excellence. It makes our buses slower, which can increase our costs to maintain the same frequencies, which is why we're partnering with the region to invest in bus priority, and we'll hear more about that in the next presentation. It also results in more late trips, and this is after we've adjusted our running times to take into account the slower speeds, but it still has an impact on on-time performance. And congestion can also increase collision risk. We see a positive reduction of collisions when we kind of separate our vehicles from traffic and they operate in bus-only lanes. So that concludes the Q2 presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. I'll turn first to committee members to see if any questions, comments. Okay, Director Lowe, or I'm sorry, Director Weber. Yeah, go right ahead.
Sorry, just a quick one. Ms. Holt, you mentioned that you were diving into the declining bus ridership. I just wondered what your time frame is for coming back to the board with some results of that analysis.
I think we're looking to come back in kind of the June timeframe with a more holistic report about the entire network redesign and how we've kind of met or not met some of the goals.
Great, thank you.
Director Lowe.
I had a really nice chat with the team the other day about what's going on with ridership, because I think you guys know I study regional economic trends for my day job. And I actually don't believe the drop in ridership is related to the network redesign. So we had just had an interesting exchange about, data and like how to look into this more. I'm worried about the region. And so that, means needing to worry about Metro. I just want to thank you for looking into the congestion topic. Kind of the key takeaway for me is so congestion actually isn't worse than 2019, but the collision rate is up. This kind of feeds my prior that people are driving scarier than they used to, which I'm never going to be able to prove, but which I just feel every time I walk outside. And, I think to me, what this reemphasizes is that the benefit of dedicated bus lanes, as opposed to other forms of bus prioritization, there's the safety benefit for all road users, not just the ones on the bus. That is of overmastering importance, because it's dangerous out there. And it's significantly worse than 6 years ago. So I think it really strengthens the case. I want to be clear, obviously I think reliability is also a great reason to do bus priority, but I think that we need to think about emphasizing this safety topic for all road users more when discussing this with partners, because these collisions, the cost is real. It's not just the emotional cost right? Like the collisions cause more congestion too, plus the actual physical damage to like vehicles and people. Like, you know, that is all of those costs, like those can be quantified. Many of them have to be borne by the public sector. And so, you know, I think there's real, there are savings in addition to safety benefits to be had from specifically doing the dedicated lanes. And that's something we need to lean into.
Thank you, Director Lowe. Director McAndrews.
A couple items following up on Director Weber's question. So on the slide regarding 8% reduction in bus riders, it was a vague term of regional economic trends. And so I'm just kind of wondering can you give me a little bit more color into what that means? Because we're not seeing similar types of regional economic trends on rail. And so what's the difference between rail and bus, I guess?
So part of it on rail, you know, a lot of our rail ridership is commuter driven. So really the federal return to office mandate has kind of helped the rail side. Bus, it is less commuter driven. So when we're looking at regional economic trends, it's looking at, I think, kind of spending across the region, consumer spending, and kind of how that has varied. And kind of when we kind of look at those side by side, the trends are looking in the same way.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. Next to ridership projections. So we've had a Herculean run of months over months of ridership gains. Are we expecting and factoring in, you know, the economic conditions on the bus side, as well as maybe some level of ceiling on the rail side, that we're going to get to a point where we're maybe not plateauing, but the growth rate is slowing? And when do you project that would be the case?
Board Member McAndrew, I think a few things there. The proposed budget does assume some continued growth in ridership and revenue. I think we are continuing to see growth with some exceptions, as Jordan went through with during the October-November timeframe. Just some recent stats yesterday, we expect was the highest February day since 2020 in total ridership. So there's that growth is continuing. I think we anticipate in March coming back to the Finance and Capital Committee with a refresh on both our ridership and revenue projections. Nothing major, but a little fidelity on what we've learned since the proposed budget was put together. And again, for budgeting purposes and financial purposes, we're going to continue to be conservative and anticipating some growth, but not the same jumps in growth we saw for the past several years, but tweaking it a little bit for latest information we have.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Last question. And I don't think it was in the presentation, but maybe in the appendix slides, which was also great perusing because there's a lot of good information there. But so we have cut bus because of operator availability. We have a hiring challenge. And then this next year's budget, we're also proposing to grow service. And I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's over 100 bus operators that we would need to maintain the new expanded service. So can you walk me through kind of current trends, what you're seeing, and any level of confidence or certainty of how we fill those gaps if we're going to grow the service?
We factor all those in. We have a kind of monthly forecasting model that we use, and we factor in kind of current attrition rates, both in training and kind of overall absenteeism rates, as well as the service levels that we'll need. And we have a target of for extra board, and we factor that in too. And so when we have projected out using our proposed FY27 service plan, and kind of if we have set a target of running kind of class sizes of about 90, which again is almost twice what we had been doing, and anticipate kind of being kind of fully staffed by late fall of fiscal year 27.
Gotcha. If I could just add, Board Member McAndrew, I think this sort of reemphasizes, it feels like a long time ago, but we did do a hiring freeze and slowed hiring. It takes a long time to recover for positions that we really need to be recruiting and training for all the time. So really we've got to stay on top of this to be able to align the level of operators we need with the schedule that that the board adopts.
Understand. Thank you.
Okay, I did have one question, actually one comment first. I very much appreciate the KPIs and the emphasis on continuous improvement. I think that's really critical for the organization, looking across all activities, all operations. So thank you for that. My question was, and Ms. Holt, you had mentioned this on slide 33, and the 4%, basically 4% of trips late, and you mentioned that even this was after adjusting the schedule. And I appreciate that caveat, but is there any other way to measure that? If we didn't adjust the schedules, basically we would be running 50% late, or because really getting back to the bus priority issue and the need for dedicated bus lanes, I wouldn't want people to think, oh gosh, only 4% of our trips are late.
Yeah, but I think this is actually kind of addressed a little bit in the next presentation
Yeah.
in that graphic diagram. So not to say like, don't answer this right now, but maybe we should just kind of carry this discussion over.
Well, this is
to
why
the
I
next
waited the question at the end, because we're going.
You're just setting it
But
up.
it
Now
is
come in for the dunk. Okay.
But do you want to address that in the next one, or?
That would be, yeah, to say briefly, we will go into it in more detail in the next one, but yes, it is looking we have kind of broken down by looking at where kind of in a bus's journey we're spending the most time. And part of that is at signals. Part of that is in congestion. And kind of that's how we estimate the benefits of bus priority program. So you'll get a lot of more details and numbers in the next presentation.
Yeah, please.
If I can make a quick comment. So great questions. Really appreciate the feedback on service delivery. So to Board Member Andrews' point, and I think this is really important, right? We are doing everything we can to deliver every trip. But actually, Leroy just texted me. So yesterday was actually least amount of drop trips for operators we've had since before we started the network redesign training. So we actually were only short 35 operators yesterday. Wow. And so from a quota point of view, we do have a less than 2% vacancy rate on bus operators. So while I think part of the challenge is we were so transparent on the term operator availability caused a drop trip that really no one in the industry did until we started doing that everyone could see that because we thought that transparency was important. But I think now that's got in the vernacular of all these trips, and a lot of trips in the last couple of weeks were actually dropped because of road conditions and other factors, and as Jordan mentioned, traffic. So we are slowly but surely getting there. We actually, if we had not done the network redesign, we would definitely be fully staffed at bus. We had to slow training down for that as well to do all the network piece. So I just want the board to be reassured. This is something Jamie, Leroy specifically are on every single day. Sherry has done a great job of building a pipeline. So it's not that we are lacking recruits to come here. We actually have a lot of people interested. It's just the process of bringing people on board, training them, attrition, things of that nature. So not having those gaps really matters to Tom's point about predictability of funding and in classes. So I'm convinced that that's only going to get better month by month as we go forward.
All right, great. Well, let's be careful about hiring freezes in the future too. So actually, I believe we do have one more question. Director Flowers online. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. One, I just want to say at the outset, thank you to my colleagues for accommodating me participating virtually today. But also I want to say at the outset, right, I'm very encouraged by some of the numbers that are in here, right, in terms of our overall satisfaction. And this is very exciting. I mean, this is the idea, customer satisfaction over 90% on rail, right? That's a great thing for all of us to be, it's a testament to both management and our colleagues who are out in the field every day. It's very exciting that we've also improved the crime and public safety situation here. I did have two questions, though, about the parts where we missed the target. And I think we talked about this maybe in my first meeting about customer injury rate. Can we go into what's driving that? Are these injuries due to kind of what my colleague is talking about around that, unfortunately, collisions are up, right? So that you have some of these injury rates for customers, especially just what's driving it, making it so much higher than our employee injury rate. Can you go into a little bit of that?
Happily. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Let me find the slide with my notes on this. Okay. So we did the main drivers of customer injuries are what we call slips, trips, and falls. So about 3/4 of injuries are slips, trips, and falls, and about half of those are on bus. And you're like, well, what is a slip, trip, and fall on a bus? What counts for that is hard braking. So a lot of that is related to a bus that stops short to try and avoid a collision, which is kind of why I was saying collision risk is a big thing there. And then on the rail system, a lot of the injuries are slips, trips, and falls on escalators. Some of that is if escalators are slippery with the weather. A lot of it is customer behavior driven. So those are kind of the biggest types of customer injuries. We have, on the positive side, we are not meeting our target, but have seen a steady decline over the last 6 months. So that's encouraging. We did kind of, when you look month to month, kind of in December, we did meet our target. So, hopefully the effort, the mitigations that we've been putting in place will kind of support that continued decline.
Great. And then actually you led into my next question around kind of about Metro cleanliness and customer satisfaction. I was wondering how much of this is seasonal, right? I mean, I just know myself, right? Is that when, it's gross and we've got snowcrete and soils on our vehicles, right? It's just naturally, you're like, oh man, everything's kind of just got this grime on it. How much of this is seasonal, or is this kind of laid out? Is there anything particularly acute around kind of bus cleanliness that we can actually deliver, or is it just one of these things where it's a little bit cyclical, kind of like your utility bill?
There is a cyclical nature to both employee and customer injuries, kind of depending on the season, the slips, trips, and falls that are weather related, if it's rainier, that kind of thing. And so, there's also that cyclical nature then in cleanliness as well.
Okay. Other questions I had were on, I guess it's slide 11 on my end, right, within the board materials on absenteeism, right? So I just had a couple like sub questions right here. Is that when we talked about the attrition rate, can you explain how much of that is like just folks being retirement eligible versus leaving for other reasons? And then since I'm new, can you guys just walk me through a little bit of like, hey, what have been some of the things that we've been trying to address that like have made it challenging to, on operator hiring, or, what have we done to increase it? Like what has made us more attractive to increase operator hiring?
Sure. So the turnover or attrition rate does include, we kind of think of it in 3 buckets. One is retirement. One is other kind of resignations, voluntary, and one is involuntary. I think retirement and voluntary have been pretty consistent. This past quarter, we did that. When it says turnover is up slightly this fiscal year to date, it is a little bit up for involuntary turnover. And a lot of that is related to adherence to our collective bargaining agreement. So, if operators aren't showing up to work, we, have a process to follow for that. In terms of the longer term trends, so coming out of the pandemic, like most properties, we had paused hiring during the pandemic, and so had an operator shortage that we really ramped up our recruitment efforts, looked at different ways of recruiting. I think we offered some incentives during that time, and dug ourselves out of that hole. So we were kind of fully staffed right before we hit a budget challenge, and paused hiring for a good 6 months, I believe, around 6 months, to due to save operating funds. And then it's just a long tail. So we actually have
Yes.
a very robust recruitment pipeline. Like getting people to fill our classes is not a challenge right now. We have, a training department of a certain size. We have a certain number of buses.
Yeah, right. It's the pipeline and how much
It's
volume
throughput.
can you put through that infrastructure?
Exactly. So, and that's what we've been focusing on. Like I said, we had kind of more about a 50 operator size class, and now we've upped that to 90.
I think
So-
if I could add, board member, just 2 points. I think one, calibrating the pipeline and the throughput is really important for the quality of operators coming out of that training and their readiness to perform. And then second, I think really important context, bus operators are in many ways the entry-level position at Metro, and they become the pool for a number of other positions, including rail operators.
Yes.
So again, a very important reason why we need to be consistently recruiting and training bus operators, because a lot of that voluntary attrition is associated with other opportunities at Metro.
Hey, that's great, right? And yeah, this is we're a little bit of a victim of our own success, right? As our colleagues progress in their careers, right, they're going to move on to different roles, which is a quality thing for us. But I agree with you, right? Then this idea of having a consistent pipeline. So I commend all of you for expanding the class size, which is important. But thank you for the education here on just getting me up to speed on kind of where we've been and and what's driving some of these kind of these sub bullets of the numbers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Director Flowers. Any final questions on this? Okay, let's move on. Tom, do you have the next one? Service. Okay.
All right, so good morning again. And again, I'm Tom Webster with Planning and Performance at Metro. I'm joined now by my colleagues, Leroy Jones, who's Executive Vice President and Chief Operations Officer, and Allison Davis, Senior Vice President of Planning and Program Development within Planning and Performance. We're here this morning to provide information about service design and management, a priority program in Metro's strategic transformation plan, which was adopted by the board about 2 months ago. Service design and management is one of 18 major portfolios of work called priority programs outlined in our strategic transformation plan. It aligns with our service excellence goal and aims to drive progress on our objective to improve reliability, providing dependable service that the community trusts. This is one of the 5 programs that the board and the executive team focused on for enhanced reporting and discussion over the next 6 months or so. And today we will detail the major components of this program and the progress we expect over the next roughly 12 months. I'll now turn it over to Leroy to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, Chair and board members. The program aims to, oops, sorry, get to the next slide. Right, there we go. The program aims for continuous improvement on 2 components that we know are important for driving ridership growth. First, ensuring the network is useful to our customers and supports regional mobility, very important. We do this by maximizing connections to destinations and running frequent buses and trains. In addition, Metro Access provides mobility challenged customers regional access to needed services and to other destinations. Second, ensuring that we operate a reliable network. This program contributes to ambitious improvements in on-time performance and reducing missed trips, as previously talked about in the prior presentation. Here are a few examples of the significant progress that Metro has made in these 2 areas over the last 3 years. First, Metro launched the new bus network, which operates 7% more service for the same amount of funding. Second, we returned all rail lines to automatic door and automatic train operations, creating significant efficiencies by reducing end-to-end train travel by 4 to 11% per line. Third, approximately 15 miles of bus lanes were added throughout the region between calendar year 2023 and 2025. In addition, we opened 7 new rail line. I'm sorry, I wish we were 7 new rail lines. Right, seven new stations in FY23, which provided more access to Northern Virginia. Over the next 3 years, we're going to focus our efforts in 3 areas. First, improving scheduling and planning. Also, advancing operational strategies like headway management and outdoor boarding. I know, Dr. Lowe, we've had conversations about that, so really happy to report to you and the board later on in the presentation what we're going to do about that next. Third, expanding bus priority by working with regional partners to advance the DMV Moves action plans. So this program doesn't stand alone. It interacts in a positive way with other programs and goals. For example, the rolling 3-year service plan. One of the projects in this program informs fleet plans and acquisition strategies, including the agency's decision to retire 26 underperforming 3000 series rail cars by this spring and acquire more 60-foot articulated buses. Also, better fleet planning and maintenance strategies improves higher availability, which reduces missed trips and crowding, two of the key results under service excellence. For our talented teams goal, the service plan also informs monthly staffing forecasts that drive decisions about the pace of recruiting and training to minimize missed trips due to operator availability. As previously mentioned, the human capital team has done a really good job building a robust pipeline for bus operators. Over the last few months, we've had as many as 1,000 people in the pipeline. So we definitely have a pool of applicants, and the training team has started class sizes of over 90 bus operators late last year so that we can get more people properly trained to provide the service that we need with larger classes. The current vacancy rate, as also previously mentioned, is less than 2%. The quota right now for the service that we provide with the 17% extra board is just around 2,638 bus operators, and to date we have over 2,600 bus operators on staff. The management team has been working hard to really enforce the strengthened attendance policy that was negotiated during the last round of bargaining with our union partners. Lastly, our focus on bus priority helps increase bus speeds, which means that we'll need fewer buses and fewer operators to run the same amount of service. And this will lower our operating cost per revenue miles, creating efficiencies that can be reinvested, which we've done over the last few years. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Allison Davis.
Thanks, Leroy. So our strategy is really to identify those efficiencies that I know Jordan was talking about in scheduling and operations, because the whole basis of everything we operate is that schedule. And so that's what really helps us expand service to improve access to places people actually want to go and when they want to travel, and then schedule that service more reliably. We've already seen a lot of positive results. In this current budget year, we invested about $20 million into better frequencies and scheduling improvements. And as a result, we've seen the best on-time performance in years on both rail and bus. When we presented the budget in December for FY27, we introduced this rolling 3-year look ahead for service. And I think I'm really proud of the team for pulling that together, because it's something we've wanted to have for a while, and it gives that line of sight as to where we want to go. We're refining that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in this presentation, but that gives that a bit more line of sight into where some of those improvements might show up. We are starting to update our bus and rail service guidelines. So this falls out of some of the work with DMV Moves, and how do we have, from a regional perspective, common guidelines, common performance metrics that we all report. Our guidelines date back to 2020, 2022, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity to dust those off and make some improvements. And we're targeting bringing that back to the board early summer. And then obviously I think anyone who rides knows that we update service twice a year, right? It's that December and June time period. And so we did a lot of work post network redesign, using a lot of data to make some of those service changes that we could within the budget that we had. Talking about that, maybe it was one earlier trip, some of the crowding that we saw. So we got a lot of benefit there. And then we also adjusted running times for full ATO, because of course then we had multiple months fully operating. So we're really seeing a lot of those benefits. And I would say from the ridership that we're seeing, our customers are also seeing those benefits as well. So that rolling 3-year service plan, again, introduced it I want to say last month, but in December. And this is what, we hear from our customers, right? They want shorter wait time, so more frequent service, fast travel time, so that's that speed, and then that reliable service. And so that's making sure that on-time performance is really where it needs to be. And this is the Council of Governments just released their State of the Commute survey, and that, it's not just our customers, it's showing up in that information as well. And so it's not, just a Metro thing, it's what customers across the region really want. And our budget is really prioritizing the investments in frequency, expanding coverage, and really focusing on those longer hours. And you can see from that, where we're going in terms of average scheduled wait time. So that's what the frequency is driving towards. For rail, that is improving the wait times. It's reducing it by 4%. And then access to jobs, which is really just a proxy for places people want to go, whether it's shopping, healthcare, education, or actual jobs. And so we've improved that by 4%. Turning it back to Leroy.
Thank you, Allison.
Not enough movement. Yes.
Yeah.
Rapt attention.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So one of our biggest accomplishments over the past 3 years was the opening of the Metro Integrated Command and Communication Center in October of 2023, essentially our nerve center for operations for our modes of transportation. As noted on the left side of the slide, we have seen OTP improve across all modes. And over the past year, the bus section within the control center has increased its active management of bus operations alongside the street operations, the supervisors that's actually out in the system managing the service, essentially making almost 100 service adjustments daily to reduce early arrivals, ensure on-time departures, as well as minimize bunching. So a few examples of an adjustment is a bus holding somewhere along the line to make sure that they're not running ahead of schedule too much. And then also adjusting the schedule at the end of the line, maybe holding the bus at the end of the line, or having it deadhead to the middle of the line to ensure proper spacing and to provide the best service. So just a quick overview of what headway management is compared to scheduled service. So headway management really focuses on managing the spaces between buses versus adhering to a strict schedule. It's really ideal for routes that operate on high frequency routes. And just a few examples are the C53, the D80, and the D40. It's really an opportunity to reduce bunching and gapping that can lead to longer than expected customer wait times. So beginning in December of 2025, the team launched headway management on the C53 route. And just for some context and some background on that particular route, it's one of our longest routes in the system. It has a running time of approximately 72 minutes one way. It runs from Congress Heights Station over in Southeast DC along 8th Street Northeast, along Florida Avenue Northwest, and then ends at Woodley Park and Upper Northwest. So a really long route. And it's also one of our most frequent routes that serves over 12,000 customers each weekday and is also part of our 24/7 network. So a few lessons learned from this effort will definitely be considered to inform a headway management playbook and potential deployment on other routes in the future. Over the next year, Metro operations planning and scheduling teams will build on lessons learned to deliver service to support some of the multiple high-profile regional events that will draw higher ridership. As you all know, cherry blossom season is coming up. I think we're all looking forward to it based on the storm that we just received in this region, but also the 4th of July, 2 events that we normally have to deal with and provide great service for. But also this year, we have to also plan for America's 250th, all the celebrations that come with that, in addition to the IndyCar race in late August. And one of the things that we're also focused on already this year internally is the NFL draft next year in 2027. That's going to be a big deal for this region. It's going to bring a lot of people here, so we're already talking and planning for that. And why is that important? It's going to require a lot of regional coordination. I think the snowstorm is just an example of all of the coordination that we do every single day. And we're doing the same thing to plan for all of these special events to make sure that not only the residents of this region, but the guests that come here will have a positive experience using Metro. So Director Lowe, coming back to you on the discussions that we've had about outdoor boarding and what are the next steps. So I'll jump right to the next slide. So outdoor boarding from a Metro perspective can be particularly effective at stops where we have 5 or more customers boarding or when the wheelchair ramp is deployed. Outdoor boarding is officially encouraged on 5 routes, the D1X, the D10, the P30, the P40, and the A40. But since all of our buses have been installed with the rear door targets, customers are already using the rear door to enter because we have to open the rear door to let customers off. So that's already happening. So just some quick data on what we're seeing. Approximately 7% of all customers are boarding through the rear door, and the rear door tap rates essentially are the same as the front door rates. So essentially, if you're paying going through the front door, you're paying most likely going through the rear door, all right? Good news on fare evasion for bus. It has declined from 75% to 68%, which represents a 7% improvement. So definitely going in the right direction, not where we want to be, but we are making great strides in that area. Tap Ride and Go, we feel, has been a positive impact on our ability to actually get people to pay the fare. We are seeing about 3% of all taps on bus. And as recent as December, we saw 4%, as Jordan mentioned in her previous presentation. Also, from a fare enforcement to ensure fare compliance perspective, Transit Police, in 2025, it was about a 40% increase in fare evasion citations. And the team in operations, digital modernization, we're really leaning in to make sure that the fare box is available for customers to use. We are monitoring that as much as we possibly can in real time in our control center, running daily reports and getting buses in service that actually have good working fare boxes and making sure that the operators are re-instructed to troubleshoot when fare boxes do go out of service throughout the course of the route. So based on all of those factors, Metro, we are planning to officially expand outdoor boarding in May of 2026 system-wide on all routes with guidance to operators when to proactively open the back door. As previously mentioned, when there are 5 customers standing at a bus stop or where the ramp has to be deployed. So we will, prior to the launch, make sure we have a good comms plan around this. We're going to launch a comprehensive pay your fare communications campaign. That's very important. Last week, our Transit Police Department started to bolster the fare enforcement officers so customers can expect to see more police presence at bus stops and bus terminals system-wide. And as we get closer to the launch, we'll provide more information to our customers. Turn it back over to Allison.
All right, let's talk a little bit about bus priority. So recently, in the past year or two, we've added about 13 miles of new bus lanes, and so thank you to our jurisdictional partners who are pushing hard. I know it's not an easy lift, and we really appreciate that. We really appreciate that partnership. We know that buses that are traveling, as Jordan had pointed out, traffic is back, right? Back to the 2019 levels. And so overall bus speeds have declined by 11%, but the buses that are on corridors with bus-only lanes, buses are traveling at 13% faster than 2019, right? So we know these interventions and infrastructure improvements on our roadways really work and really help drive, literally drive, but actually make the buses actually go faster, which is reliability, but it's also a financial improvement because it helps us turn those buses faster, keep them on target, reduce opportunity for overtime, like all of those things that really drive up the cost of bus service. So I think there's a lot to be said there. and they free up resources for us to invest in more bus service, right? Which then gets to where we want to go. So for those who aren't totally immersed in bus priority, like we think about this in a couple of different ways, right? There are the policies that our jurisdictional partners set, right? San Francisco has a transit first policy that is citywide. Transit is the name of the game. Some of our jurisdictional partners are moving in that direction, and we really appreciate that. But this is then looking at those design treatments. Where do we have dedicated bus lanes? Where do we have those intersection treatments, queue jumps, and the like? And we've had improvements, but it's really how do we move this much faster than the region's been doing to date? And then obviously from the operating perspective, we need high frequency, high capacity buses on those routes at all times, because if we're using that roadway space, we need to be seeing buses on there pretty consistently. And then to Lever's point, having that rapid boarding from all doors to really help move things along. So as part of DMV Moves, we did a lot of work with our regional partners to identify, we identified 7 of the region's highest priority corridors, and where we're moving, pushing with our jurisdictional partners to advance on those. And so some of those, the purpose here is to really identify, look, there are lots of good candidates. How do we select a few and start to show real movement on those? And for us, as we've talked about through DMV Moves, we would coordinate on that federal funding strategy. There are, whether it's core capacity, new starts, opportunities, there are lots of different opportunities that we could lead on. And then working with the jurisdictions to build and implement the roadway treatments. And then we would continue to operate on most of these routes, that mainline service that we already do operate. So some of the sections that we're working on, the part of Crosstown that is from Union Station to RFK to Benning Road, right? So that is a really key access point for the new stadium and the redevelopment, working with Montgomery County on New Hampshire, with DDOT on Georgia Avenue, and then with a mix of different agencies in Northern Virginia on the the Route 7 corridor. So next, talking about transit signal priority. So all transit signal priority is a bus rolls up to an intersection and it either gets an extended green or it truncates the red signal, right? So it's how do we move our buses through the intersections faster and not have them dwell too long at those intersections. So it's really shared, right? All of our buses are currently have the transit signal priority transponders on them. They need to then work with the signals that the jurisdictions own. And we are looking to procure that next gen system on behalf of the region. We've been working with 14 different road owners and other local providers to kind of come together on a concept of operations for this. But this is really where the benefit is to kind of partner with our jurisdictional partners as they upgrade their signaling system as well. So what does that mean? We've got our buses are spending about 25 to 45% of the total travel time sitting at traffic signals, right? So is that going to be zero? No. But how do we start to drive that down and move them through a much faster way? And then it is looking for our frequent service network, really getting about 80% of all intersections of all traffic signals at the intersections on those frequent service networks up to having transit signal priority. We're at about 250 right now. So there's some work to do on that. So next steps, again, we are continuing to work with our different agencies on this, looking to do the vendor solicitation this spring with selection in the fall. And then having that phased deployment. So obviously we need to test it on a couple of key corridors that we'll select with the jurisdictions and then roll that out for all those corridors over the next couple of years. Turning it back to Tom.
So, Mr. Chair, just to wrap up here, I think, as mentioned, this is one of the areas for focused discussion and reporting over the next 6-12 months. So this slide outlines some of our major next steps, including the consideration of service plan for FY27 and the multi-year plan, and then rolling forward to the implementation of many of the things that we described here this morning. So with that, happy to support discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to break protocol a little bit and call on Dr. Lowe. I know a couple of these items are near and dear to your heart, so if you want to start us off with questions, please do.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, everyone. I just feel like liberated from the guilt I felt about leaving the Safety and Operations Committee and changing committees, because this is like, there's so much closure in this presentation from topics that I wanted to work on when I first joined the board, back when like dinosaurs were still on the earth. Like, I do have a lot of questions about the presentation, but some of them are really tiny. So let's start with the itty bitty stuff. What is HASTUS?
HASTUS is the scheduling software that we use to, yes. And so we, especially for bus, so we've upgraded both for rail and bus in the past couple of years. And as we were implementing Better Bus was also when we were implementing HASTUS. And so we were able to see a lot of benefits. Kudos to the team for using it in the way that it was created, not kind of creating their own special way, but just using a lot of the benefits that HASTUS provides to schedule things in a very smart and efficient way.
That's really cool.
If I could add, Board Member Lowe, this is another one of those examples of a technology investment, an upgrade to a modern scheduling system for rail and bus, where we also made business process changes and procedural changes as part of the network redesign and as part of our rail scheduling, where that capital technology investment then enabled the efficiency gains that we saw that we could then reinvest in the service. So that linkage between the capital investment and the payoff is really clear with this HASTUS upgrade.
That is like a pattern that I'm seeing repeated at Metro over and over, just in the time that I've been here. This like kind of two twin concepts. One is Metro's doing something some precious Metro way that's not the way that anybody else does it for reasons, and it's been that way forever. And there's a need to incur high upfront capital cost in order to achieve one time, in order to achieve repeated and recurring operating savings, and also like normalize our practice to the state of practice everywhere else, whether it's the best or not, just how it's done. So it's just always fun to hear another example of that happening. I think I realized I was confused about what the points that start on slide 38, that were in the parentheses. I didn't understand what they were when I read the deck. But now I think I understand that everywhere I see those in the deck, the slide is discussing some kind of actual some KPI, and that refers to percentage point change in the KPI that has already occurred, perhaps in the last 2 quarters.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And then I have one more reader issue. What am I looking at on slide 46 when I'm looking at the map?
So this is our frequent service network, and this is where we're really targeting the transit signal priority, right? So other routes that travel on some of these corridors that maybe are not part of the frequent service will benefit, but these are where the intersections that we want to target, and since we've got about 1,000, it's a lot easier to see this than 1,000 little dots.
Yeah. No, I never want to. I always want to be looking at the frequent service network, but don't we already have some signal priority out there? Is next gen different? Is that baby gen? Or how many do we have?
We do. So right now we've got about 250. So all of our buses have the transponders on board.
The thing, okay.
And about 250 intersections in the district and Maryland. That system was created in 2016, right? Implemented in 2016. So though it doesn't seem like that long ago, that is
God, it was
old.
10 years ago.
Exactly. So
possible?
yes. So what we did then is now not best in class, right? And it is a bit limiting in how we can make improvements. So kind of making that leap forward kind of similar to how what Tom was talking about, the hastiness improvement, allows us to expand, but also that some of our jurisdictional partners are improving their signaling system, which allows us to be in the cloud, have a better partnership, all those opportunities, right? So it's kind of a perfect storm of opportunity to improve.
Okay, so I'm going to change the topic to like Tap Ride Go for just a second. Metro like tried to do Tap Ride Go like a billion years ago or something, and it wasn't successful because like most people's debit and credit cards in the United States at that time like didn't even have the thing. Thank you, Walter. And maybe there were like other reasons too, but the point is like it was just like too soon. And it's like kudos to everyone for like being innovative, but like the timing was not right. Is the time right for next gen TSP? Like how much have we coordinated with our jurisdictional partners? Like, did they really get new signals?
They are in process. So the district, a couple other jurisdictions are starting to procure their signals. So it's
Love
kind
to
of
hear that the
it's
district is
aligning with
leading.
that. I mean, we will have to procure, do the testing. Like so, it's not.
So it's going to take forever anyway. Okay.
I'd like to think not forever, but it's not. It's not tomorrow. So that, but we have been working. We've got a concept of operations. We've partnered with like 14 different agencies to get that set up. So, and we've received comments and kind of incorporated all that. So
Okay, and we have 250 right now. What's the vision?
So we'd like to get up to about 1,000, which is about 80% of the intersections on our frequent service network.
Really?
Yes. So that's where we want to go.
Okay.
Would we like more? Also, yes. But
Let's.
you know,
That's an incredible number. On the Tap Ride Go topic, it works on bus now. Does it work on the back reader?
Yes.
So you can all door board with a debit card, tap on the back reader, and just sit down. Okay, that's great. The headway management playbook, I just want to note just like how cool I think that is too. I remember when I first joined the board, I sat down with Chairman Mendelson and he said that like the thing that people complain to him the most about bus service is bunching. And he was like, why doesn't Metro? And then he basically like verbally described, he like invented headway management in his head and like verbally described it to me. And he was like, why don't they do that? And I was like, I just got here. I don't know. So I'm really excited to be able to go back to him and be like, remember that thing that you invented in your head? It's real. It's 100% real. This is definitely happening. It's so great when I can actually like say that something is getting fixed and it's going to be better. I just want to conclude. This is ending. I'm sorry. The all-door boarding topic. I first just want to express my appreciation to the staff. I realize that it's been extremely annoying how much I keep bringing it up. Thank you. I'm really, really happy that we can go back to the riders and say what we learned from the all-door boarding pilot and then move forward based on what we learned. When I went, I just want to be clear that like it's actually the RAC that stuck with this topic better than me. And Jordan was at the RAC meeting where I went to be like, why is this so important? Like, why should this be a priority? The riders feel really strongly about this, like shockingly to me strongly about this topic. I mean, presumably because like maybe the RAC members are like using different buses than me where this is going to like, you know, have a bigger impact. And I think that it is awesome that we can now tell them the results of the pilot are that this works. We have Tap Ride Go on every reader. And I just want to emphasize that what I heard from the RAC is that they feel really strongly that the operator training is a really important piece of this. They had stories about people getting like eaten by the back door. Like we have to get this right. And just like operator training to like log in and turn the fare box on at the terminal, like how I kept harping that like that, it just like it has to happen. It's not always consistently happening. operator training is going to be such an important part of rolling out all-door boarding, and we just should not underestimate how hard that's going to be, how hard it's going to be to implement consistently, but how important that it is to get right, because like someone only has to get like slapped by a door like one time before they're like, I'm never doing that again. So that's going to be a key part of this process, and I promise to have realistic expectations about how long it's going to take to get everyone trained and to really implement this. But thank you, and I'm just so happy to see this.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lowe. And just for the record, our buses do not eat people, but that's okay. Just making sure that's clear. Let's go to Chair Santos.
Thank you, Director Alcorn. First of all, just want to compliment the team on the use of technology and the emphasis on continuing improvements. This presentation in particular really underscores that point, and TSP in particular. A few questions related to that. I think it's slide, what slide is this? There was a slide that I believe said there was 20 million achieved in operational efficiencies. Could you just clarify where, one of these, where that savings came from?
So this is referring to the FY26 budget process and service planning process. And the majority of the efficiency gains were associated with the bus schedule improvements and the network redesign, as well as the full implementation of the schedules with automatic train operation, automatic doors, and design speeds. So I don't have the exact numbers to break down in front of me, but that was the majority of what drove the efficiency gains that were then reinvested in service last year.
Which is fantastic and makes the point about how investments into technology and improvements can result in both service improvements and operating efficiencies. Another just point of clarification is there, to Director Lowe's questions related to rear door boarding, I must confess I can't recall. I know that it was mentioned to us that there was a pilot and pilot was great. Can you clarify what did we learn from the all-door pilot and why the team decided that now the time is right and that Metro is ready for all-door boarding or rear door boarding?
As mentioned, so thank you for the question. As mentioned during the presentation, one of the things we realized was that we were getting the same tap rates in the rear door that we were coming through the front door. In addition, we saw people boarding through the back outside of the 5 routes that I mentioned during the presentation. And we just thought it would be best to roll it out system-wide because it would be somewhat challenging to just continue to roll it out in bits and pieces. So we had a robust discussion on various options, and just based on the data that we had available, we thought this was the best option moving forward.
Thank you. And this relates to bus fare collection concerns. And so it's great to see that the numbers are moving in a positive direction. So I saw that there's improvement down to, we're now at only 69%, which I think we all agree is, while better, aiming for even greater improvement. How is the team proposing to balance between the push to improve fare collection on bus and understandable emphasis on improving time efficiency and customer experience by making it easier to board?
I think a few things, Chair Santos, in terms of striking the balance here. I think, as Leroy mentioned, we're going to have some customer communication campaigns and re-emphasizing, regardless of which door you're entering, the expectation, the requirement that you pay your fare. So the messaging will be consistent and then sort of tailored for the different types of boarding. I think, the continued efforts in enforcement within the resources that we have available to do that of bus fare payment. And again, that continued reestablishing of the expectation of fares paid for service and the customer and community's expectations there.
Yes, and to be clear, I mean, I am not suggesting the team isn't doing at most it can to address the issue. It's just emphasizing that there's trade-offs, of course, between the considerations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Santos. Next question, Director Weber.
Yeah, I just wanted to go to the next steps slide for a second there. On the 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. All right. The bullet, the adoption of service guidelines and standards that are going to come to us in the spring. I understand from conversations as I'm advancing my learning curve that during conversations around DMV moves, some of our jurisdictional partners had concerns about alignment between their own service standards and those of Metro. So when you come back in June, is it proposed to be just WMATA service standards, or are you setting expectations for the jurisdictional partners as well?
So thank you for that question. So we are only able to adopt Metro's service standards, right? So we are working to define, right, if going back to what is in our service standards, it is long. We have a lot of different standards in there. And so what in the conversations through DMV moves, it was really trying to, from a regional perspective, could we agree on types of service? Could we agree on frequency for those types of service? Could we get a couple of key things that I think we could get agreement on, and then it would be going back to, whichever jurisdiction to adopt in the way that they do, right? But that would be coming back to us, and it would be us coming back to you, sorry, with that part of it, as well as more that we feel that we need to have in those guidelines, right? So I think it's that partnership of or the nexus of stuff that works from a regional perspective, and then having stuff that works for us or the local provider.
Great, thank you.
Director Weber, could I jump in on that? So just to follow up, so this was not one of the items, the regional service standards, that was going to go through the Transportation Planning Board, or was it?
So can you repeat that question?
Okay, it's not.
No, this is a normal, every transit agency has service guidelines and standards, and we are updating ours. And this just happens to be, kind of adjacent to the larger regional effort where we're trying to get other agencies to kind of have guidelines and standards that, maybe not similar or exact as us, but same philosophy, same methodology, and then data analysis that the region can then have transparency around how, if we run a bus every 15 minutes and somebody else runs a bus every 15 minutes, how are they all performing? So the value of transit dollars throughout the whole region. So that, if we didn't do DMV moves and all that, we'd still be coming back to you with service guidelines and standards for our updated cycle for.
Yeah, isn't it required by the FTA?
Yeah. This is just normal transit standard business, and it just happens to be adjacent to all the DMV moves work that we were doing.
Okay.
So sorry if we unintentionally felt like we conflated those things.
Do you have additional questions, Mr. Because I'm looking forward to seeing it this spring. Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up, thank you for the clarification, because I think there probably is a discussion longer term with the regional jurisdictions and local providers on possible harmonization of some of those standards, but that's going to take more than 2 or 3 months. That's a longer term thing. So, okay, great.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I just have one question here.
Yes, please, Director Flowers.
Team, I just had a question here on this slide about the TSP system, which is great. It's my understanding that in Virginia, I think we have some of these systems, particularly on MetroU, but maybe other routes. I was wondering if that, in talking about the system that we're looking at procuring, is there a combination where there might be existing infrastructure that our vehicles are going to become interoperable, or do we need to procure something that works specifically for Metro vehicles and then ask our jurisdictional partners to integrate it into their traffic signaling systems? Or is there a way to, kind of procure where we need to, all net new, but then also layer on top just vehicle connectivity to where there is existing TSP?
So, okay, so they're each, what we want to make sure of is when we procure that system, it works because our buses move between garages or moving routes. They need to be able to work with all of the systems. So yes, there is that integration piece, and that's where it kind of comes together. Some of the jurisdictions are making kind of that generational investment in the next level or the next round of signals. And so that's why this procurement comes together at the same time. I would have to get back to you on the specifics of each jurisdiction in in Virginia, because there are many, and we're covering a lot of that ground. But that integration is key, right? The bus has to show up, the signal has to recognize that there is a bus there and do whatever the parameters are that we're asking it to do. So there's that integration piece, which is critical.
Hey, thank you. Well, listen, it would be helpful as we think about this procurement when we get to the point of just to understand, okay, as we're thinking about it, which, where is their existing TSP in Virginia? And then as we think about procuring, are there ways to make sure that we can procure so that, okay, we might only have to retrofit the vehicle, but then also not any of the kind of in-ground or, fixed infrastructure, just to make sure that we're obviously getting the most bang for our buck, while also getting the service benefits.
Yeah, thank you, Director Flowers. General Manager Clark.
Yeah, I think, I'll just add a very quick comment to this. So the idea of signaling, so first of all, we're in a world going forward where every signal is just going to turn into Internet of Things. There is no such thing as automated vehicles without modernizing our entire signaling system. So we're just going to be another vehicle that operates in the dynamic of upgraded modern signaling. So not totally like our signaling conversation on the rail side, going from A-track to streaming, but not maybe that far off, going from DVD to streaming. So the goal here is for municipalities, DOTs, to not get touching signal boxes anymore at an intersection. So those big signal boxes, those are going away over time, and everything is just cloud-based. So what we're going to procure is a cloud-based technology that, as software advances, will be interoperable across all municipalities that interact that way. So we'll be, Ford will have their version, Uber will have their version, and they'll all have to work together long-term into that type of technology. So this is a really important thing for Metro, and there's other places in the country that are definitely ahead on this, but this is a really good time that everyone's kind of coalescing around the need to do this.
No, I agree. I totally agree, right? I think this will add, it'll take us leaps and bounds ahead, right? So I totally agree there.
Yeah, thank you, Director Flowers and General Manager. Hopefully the industry standards are coming on. There'll be interoperability across procurements and different companies. Along with
yeah, and it's way bigger than transit, right? Like AASHTO is very heavily involved. Like this is every vehicle that moves has to interact this way. So I think you're going to see this really take off here over the future, and I think we're positioning ourselves really well. Long term, we're going to have micro tolling is a way that all transportation is going to be funded. That might be 15 years, it might be 40 years, who knows? But all of this stuff is going to interact that way because there cannot be automated vehicles unless your signaling system gets to the right level to support all that.
All right, thank you. Director McAndrew.
Great update today. Appreciate it. So two different lines of questions. So all-door boarding, I appreciate the update. I was not tracking the pilot. I know my good friend, Director Lowe, is very, very interested in all-door boarding, but I was not aware of our progress in this space. So appreciate the update. I'd appreciate a kind of deeper dive as a team before we roll this out this spring, just so we can understand the gives and the takes and the processes. I think there's adequate dialogue of how we do this the right way here for public, but I'd love to make sure we're a little bit more granular. To that point, I'd also appreciate Mr. Jones' line by line kind of ridership and fair payment data as well. My next question, and this is for everybody's benefit who may not have been party to the DMV moves exercise, but I'm going to ask Ms. Davis a couple questions because I feel like Jordan had a very good bus priority item. I know we're talking about bus priority here. So who principally owns the facilities that we're trying to prioritize our buses on? Is that WMATA or is that a non-WMATA entity?
I'll jump in, Allison. So because they offer this is quite frankly not so much a technical problem here. This is a political problem. So we don't own the roadway, and we need our jurisdictional
or the signals.
Exactly. Well, I think we just addressed the signals. Sorry, and the signals I just look at as part of the roadway. So we don't own that. It's why rail performance is obviously much higher, not just for us, anywhere there's a rail system in the world. And we believe that the region needs to work to more adopting transit-leaning priorities around roadway use. And the conversation DMV moves is a lot around that. What we're really trying to show is one way or the other, the jurisdiction, kind of the way our model works, pays the bill. And if we can get our buses moving faster, not only do we get more people on transit, better customer service, it's much safer, as Dr. Lowe mentioned, the bill for the jurisdictions actually either grows at a less rate or can actually shrink. And that's really what this effort is really trying to be about. We can't do everything at once. So we know that crosstown is arguably the most important because it's the only way to solve our blue, orange, silver aspect. Plus, coming up in the future, we want to talk about how that interacts with the RFK development. Georgia Ave, the district is moving on. You've done a great job, and we appreciate Maryland up in the Silver Spring area when we did the red line shutdown. We're working on that with you all for the Bethesda shutdown. But all of this comes together. We need more space to operate buses without other traffic.
Great. So I'm going to keep asking my questions here. So do we assume that WMATA would pay for the construction and the ongoing maintenance of those roadway facilities for the bus priority?
I don't think we don't have anything in our budget for that. With that said, I think if we get the DMV Moves funding resolved, then we'll have some local match to go after federal dollars to do those projects. So if you look around the country, again, we are a little anomalous here in the region, but it's not abnormal, I would say quite normal, for a transit agency to do a BRT project on a local road in other jurisdictions and pay for that. The long-term maintenance of the roadway is usually done by the municipality because, quite frankly, there's not a lot of impact to the roadway itself and there's other users. But if you built, say, center running BRT and you did platforms, the transit agency would maintain and operate that type of part of the facility. So hopefully that makes sense. And then it may be part of the technology. Every place does it a little differently, but it's not abnormal for transit agencies to not only plan, design, and build and maintain parts of a BRT network.
Gotcha. So I guess I'll just cut to the chase of what I'm after here. So I might have a unique vantage point of controlling a budget for a state DOT, a capital construction budget, as well as allocating funds to WMATA. What we allocate to WMATA is state funds. Those are non-federal funds, and I cannot leverage those dollars with federal funds. I think what I'm trying to advertise is that the state of Maryland is very interested in redeploying our roadway assets to prioritize the movement of bus. The challenge is I need a state dollar to do it. Most of my state dollars in the DMV go to this lovely agency, which is great and important. But if there are just pennies on the dollar, we can do more Georgia avenues, right? We did it for a fraction of a few dollars and did it relatively quickly. Was it perfect? No. We're very appreciative of Representative Raskin's earmark that just got approved last week to make red paint on Georgia Avenue more permanent. But I think that rapid approach and the willingness to pilot may not have been present every day in the state of Maryland under previous administrations, but under current Acting Secretary Thompson and Administrator Pines at the State Highway Administration, you got a new partner. The challenge is we're just slightly constrained. So love to find ways to free up some of those state dollars to leverage federal funds if you guys are so willing.
I think I would respond. You and I have had a couple comments. I think we as an organization need to lean into this much harder. This agency has gone through a long history of loving or not loving the bus. And I think culturally it's done some damage over time. And that's in the past. The bus, we spent an enormous amount of time in DMV Moves. This board has concentrated a lot on bus, which we appreciate. I probably talk to Lever about bus 4 times every day. We believe the bus is crucial to mobility in our region, and we're not going to be building new rail lines all over the place, even though Leroy slipped and said 7. The bus is where we need to carry more people, and it has a flexibility that is very valuable. I think this is a board discussion for sure to say, how do we start flexing more capital dollars into these things, and how do we help our jurisdictions, quite frankly, accelerate? We would need the jurisdictions to say, yes, Metro, why don't you take the lead on the design in some type of joint venture, obviously, and then procure? Because we actually believe we could actually do that generally faster than a municipality as well. So we as the staff would love to lean in and do more of that. I think we just have to make sure from a board level, everyone is good from the point of view that 1 year it could be in this part of the jurisdiction and 2 years later it could be another, and every single year might not be the same distribution across the region. So if we look at it in a 6 and 10 year, it probably spreads perfectly across 3 states. But by the year, sometimes we get, the parochial aspect of budgets. And so if we could all take a step back and look at the longer range, it would probably spread really well.
Yeah, so I can't speak to Secretary Donahue and Governor Spanberger's interests or for local partners in Northern Virginia, but I believe DC has maybe the most robust bus priority team and maybe the most success to date. I think we're rapidly catching up. So I think you've got a team of people willing. What I have, from my few years of working in transportation, if you dangle a few dollars and compete those dollars and say, I want to incent you to do an outcome that's beneficial, I think folks generally jump up and say yes. Now, those might be my dollars I give to you to dangle in front of the state of Maryland or DC or Virginia, but I think that you would find willing partners to accelerate the pace of progress within, bus priority, which I think all of us are believers of, and the data here that we've seen before us ultimately spells out.
I think it's great. I think, this might be teed up really well for the March conversation on the budget. And again, if DMV moves goes through, and I remain incredibly optimistic that we've talked before, a line item in our budget, capital budget on bus priority, I think is pretty normal for a lot of big agencies. And that would be a way that we could really activate and then finance that working with our partners. So I think all of us are appreciative of your comments for sure.
All right. Thank you, Director McAndrew. Weighty stuff. So we are running, any other questions from board members? Okay. Thank you very much. We are running a little bit behind schedule. So that's obviously the committee chair's fault. So I accept that responsibility. But that was an excellent presentation and also discussion from board members. So thank you. A lot of good stuff. And for the next one, we have a presentation on MetroU. So Ms. Dickerson, Mr. Johnson, welcome. And whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Right. Good morning. I'm Sherry Dickerson. I am the Chief People Officer for WMATA, and I'm joined by Jamie Johnson, the Chief Safety and Readiness Officer. Today, we will show you how MetroU will strengthen safety, reliability, and talent, linking training directly to outcomes. We will cover the current state, our MetroU model, early wins across corporate and technical training, as well as the police academy, and how the new training center underpins it all. Let me make sure I'm going in the right direction. Yes. So let me anchor this in WMATA's strategic transformation plan. While the obvious link is to talented teams, or more specifically, learning and development, MetroU is a mechanism to deliver all three goals: how we ensure safe, reliable service, how we attract and grow talent, and how we steward resources through efficient, modern learning. Today's focus is safety and reliability outcomes, talent development, and smarter use of systems and facilities. So before I talk about MetroU, I want to briefly set the context. In any organization, training touches many roles and functions, and readiness develops over time. As work evolves, expectations and preparation can vary across teams, especially when there are no common standards and visibility. What organizations typically observe is different levels of preparedness and limited visibility into who is fully ready for critical work. That makes it hard for leaders to have confidence in workforce capability. Why this matters? Prepared employees operate more safely, consistent skills support reliable performance, and strong preparation builds confidence and trust. And investing in the growth of employees improves retention with the organization. MetroU is our approach to strengthening that connection between training, readiness, and outcomes.
So what is MetroU? Metro University is Metro's new integrated, modern 21st century philosophy and approach to learning, training, and development. MetroU is how we are bringing structure and consistency to training across the organization. We did not start with the model, we started with what works in organizations that deliver a safety critical operation across the country. We looked at transportation, utilities, aviation, healthcare, and public safety. The same patterns occur again and again. Clarity on what people need to do, which we refer to as competency, use of shared systems for awareness, coordination, and visibility, which we're referring to here as the tech-enabled delivery, and a clear, well-articulated link between a person's role and their progression through their career, from basic certifications and qualifications through to higher levels of training, career pathways, or standards. Today, we have strong programs and expertise, but those programs often operate independently with different approaches, systems, and ways of measuring success, which makes it harder to see the full picture and manage training as one enterprise. So MetroU is delivered through 3 learning areas, what we are calling faculties: corporate, technical, and police at the top of the diagram, and we'll discuss those in more detail shortly. But MetroU is built on 3 core pillars on the right-hand side of this slide, which are designed to tackle 3 real problems. Number 1, we focus on competency-based training first, where we define what people must do to perform their job safely and effectively. Training is built around demonstrated skill, not just time spent in the learning environment or information covered. Number 2, the second pillar is technology-enabled delivery, where we use a shared system to track training, certifications, qualifications, and readiness. This improves quality, visibility, oversight, and accountability for both those learning and instructing. And the third pillar is career pathways and standards, where we align training to clear progression paths and consistent standards so employees understand what's required to advance and leaders can trust certifications, qualifications, and higher levels of training across the organization. Over time, we've learned some important lessons about how training works best in complex organizations. For example, we can have strong programs, but if they operate differently, using different standards, tools, and processes, they fall well short of our potential and what is required to be world-class. These lessons and obstacles don't mean training isn't working. They tell us where it needs to be structured better, and that is why we're taking an approach that builds on what works and fixes what's getting in our way. So before we move on, we understand where we're headed at the highest level. I wish to explore in more detail where we are currently. Today, training is getting done, be under no concerns or illusions there. We deliver training to thousands of employees and contractors every year across the agency. Instructors and designers run the programs they own and respond quickly to ever-changing operational demands, and multiple training teams use the spaces, tools, and technology we have available. What we're advancing with MetroU is not total reform, but rather a comprehensive strengthening and realignment. We're clarifying who owns training outcomes, aligning priorities so training works as one system, and standardizing how training is designed and delivered. We're also modernizing content and systems and using data more intentionally to improve results. On the facility side, we're focused on improving spaces so they better support how people learn today and not 30 years ago, increasing flexibility and capacity, and ensuring our training environments reflect the seriousness of our safety critical work. In short, we are building on what works and making it more consistent, high quality, and sustainable. So what does the learning landscape look like today at Metro? How is that training currently structured? We prepare people in all roles at Metro to do their jobs safely, from required corporate trainings like ethics or sexual harassment to supervisor training and emergency preparedness, from elevator and escalator apprenticeships to signals, power, tech courses, and then training for mechanics, bus operators, train operators, and station managers. Currently, Metro delivers training and learning in the following areas, as they're laid out on the slide here. Technical and maintenance training prepares employees to maintain and repair our systems safely. Operational training prepares operators and supervisors to run service reliably and keep customers at the forefront of our minds. Corporate learning builds the skills leaders and staff need to support the workforce at all levels, and our police academy ensures officers meet clear standards for safety, response, and professionalism. All of these program areas are owned and managed by dedicated subject matter expert owners, but who ensure delivery for those who need it. But under the surface, training and learning is prepared and delivered slightly differently across the agency, which leads to inconsistent standards and quality. MetroU will ensure consistency, standards, and quality, and ensure all areas and programs are connected by the same goals: a capable workforce that delivers safe, reliable service to the public. Under MetroU, we're streamlining under 3 areas or faculties, as I mentioned: corporate, technical, and police. And now we'll dive into more detail into what MetroU means for those 3 faculties. Sherry.
So with corporate training, our vision is simple: make learning a daily behavior, not a one-time event, where every employee sees a direct connection between learning, performance, and career growth. Everyone is a learner. We are aligning all development to the skills people need to succeed today and in the future through training needs assessments and ongoing evaluation. We're identifying critical skills, measuring knowledge retention, and ensuring learning translates to on-the-job performance. Leadership development is delivered across the career continuum with high potential programs to frontline leader development. We are building core leadership competencies using our internal expertise. Performance management remains foundational. In 2026, we're strengthening the process, improving completion rates, and using performance data to guide development priorities. We are also modernizing the learning experience so employees can access the right learning at the right time. A blended model, classroom, virtual, self-paced, on-the-job learning, and coaching ensures learning is practical, relevant, and reinforced for better retention. Modern learning technologies, including a redesigned learning management system, will enhance content delivery, user experience, and tracking of participation and outcomes. We're also updating our compliance training framework to ensure required learning is clear, consistent, and efficient. Learning is embedded from day one. We are transforming onboarding into a 30, 60, 90+ day development journey that strengthens engagement, foundational skills, and retention. Coaching and mentoring will be integrated across the employee lifecycle, expanding internal capability to support real-time learning and leadership standards. By directly connecting development to career pathways and succession planning, employees will clearly see how learning supports advancement, and the organization builds a stronger, more prepared workforce. Together, these competency-driven, technology-enabled, and career pathway approaches create a cohesive strategy that makes learning continuous, measurable, and impactful. In 2026 and beyond, we are building a culture where learning fuels performance and everyone is empowered to grow.
Thanks, Sherry. So we'll now dive in to the second faculty of 3, which is the technical training. This encompasses learning and training for our frontline operators, supervisors, and all our infrastructure and maintenance specialisms, from signals to power, mechanics, and track maintainers. These highlights capture what we are focusing on in 2026 and beyond. So for the first pillar, taking a competency-based approach, our instructors and designers are being hired, in some cases, or re-educated in the art and science of instruction and instructional design, adopting well-regarded instructional systems development practice across many other industries. We are increasing their expertise, support and guidance, and standardizing our approach to design and instruction with templates and peer review. We are building the foundations now, and as the year progresses, we will deepen our mastery and reinforce consistency across programs. For the second pillar, which is using technology to build on how we're delivering. We are utilizing systems and workflows to consistently define and record the whole learning process, from operational requirements to competencies through to learning objectives, curriculum content, instruction, on-the-job training, and then certification or qualification. While not glamorous, this approach enables consistency, standards, and ultimately analysis and continuous improvement. For the third pillar, career pathways and standards, our initial focus is on professionalizing the instructor and instructional design cohort of staff, starting at home before we integrate these principles across all those who provide the trainings. We want to ensure training teams are equipped with the right skills for the 21st century and have pathways to improve and grow. And now we'll move to the final faculty, which is the police. Obviously, I'm not the chief or the assistant chief, but I speak on their behalf. Here, much progress has been made in recent months and years by Chief Anzalo and his team with an MTPD standalone academy at the Pensy Drive campus established in 2024. This is obviously a very specific specialist area of learning and training solely for the Metro Transit Police Department. But for the first pillar, good progress has been made. They've developed a curriculum that meets all the requirements of all 3 jurisdictions in which MTPD officers operate, and it derives from best practice across the nation and meets the specific needs of MTPD's unique tri-state operational responsibility and covers legal as well as competency-based requirements. For the second pillar, the Academy utilizes technology to optimize recruitment and the tracking of officers through the Academy and beyond. Work continues to adapt and improve current facilities and ultimately integrate with a new training center to ensure recruits are benefiting from the latest technology to aid their learning. And then for the third pillar, it's obviously slightly different because it's a very well-established, formal and clearly defined rank structure working within a range of specialisms within the department. Career pathways are more advanced, I would suggest. There are multiple qualifications available to officers in addition to the basic certification received at the Police Academy. The focus really has been on recruitment with much success when compared with the rest of the region, and building a reputation for high standards is absolutely critical. So those were the 3 faculties, and I'll now briefly just turn to the new training center. So if we see the 3 faculties as the ships in our fleet here, the new training center really will be the flagship. It'll be a physical manifestation of the MetroU philosophy. On the top line there, it ultimately will be a state-of-the-art facility that consolidates training across the agency, all designed to provide hands-on, immersive, and flexible learning environments. We want this really to be not just a jewel in the crown for Metro, but for the region. And we would love to show you some designs, but we're not quite there yet. Here's where we are at. The site is secured at Pensy Drive, as you know. Our design firm was onboarded in late October, and we're currently working on the site assessment, which will inform the concept designs, which are actually due next Tuesday. We're also evaluating general contractor proposals on technical merit, and the general contractor, we hope, will be appointed in March. Importantly, we're going to, the construction team will be onboarded during the design process. This is a risk mitigation tactic to ensure that the construction team can look ahead, review and assess the designs, assess the materials required, and move more smoothly from design to construction. So at our next update, you'll be receiving a lot more information, I would expect, on the training center. I'll now hand it back to Sherry.
So we've talked about how this ties to our strategic plan. Modern competency-based training in modern facilities improves performance, grows careers, and supports retention. Streamlined learning technology reduces inefficiencies and improves productivity, and quality training drives safety and customer-centric behavior. We will track impact through defined metrics tied to safety and service, workforce competency, and capital milestones. So as we track our impact, under training, there will be the milestones for this priority will be delivered. And the training center opening will also be tracked. For workforce competencies, we will expand our leadership offerings and target employee sentiment, making sure that we show those numbers rising in a positive direction. For safety and service, we will tie this to the SMS and service excellent metrics, improving supervisor support sentiment, which is currently set at 68%. And we will also brief you regularly. And so this kind of lays out our reporting of this priority project. As you can see, in May, July, and December, there will be updates to the board, as well as status of the capital investments will be tracked in February and September. And with that, I ask if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Very, very good presentation. Appreciate all the information. It's a good reminder as we're talking about investing regionally in our system, in our sometimes our capital stock, technology. This also reminds us that we have to invest in our people. Yeah. And this is a great demonstration of that. I did have just one question. The WMSC has expressed concerns over the years about our training certification processes. Is this going to help with that? Is this, Jamie, I don't know if you wanted to address that a little bit.
No, absolutely. So I would say that the challenges that were identified over the last, 2 to 5 years with those processes have been resolved and solved. What this will allow us to do is to take those lessons about good record management, assuring high quality when it comes to certification, not only for the students, but the instructors or the certifiers who are executing that, to take those lessons and then seek to double down using technology. The second pillar is really about, you immediately might go to automated reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, or virtual reality. That's where you're thinking the technology might be. Yes, that will come, but we're building the foundations by using technology to run ourselves better. That's where the real opportunity is, building the foundation first and then maximizing technology in lots of different ways.
Great.
And the certification is a great example of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any questions, Director Weber?
Just a observation here and a question. On the slide regarding the technical training faculty, you mentioned that the initial focus is on strengthening the instructor core. And so it strikes me that in another way, you might be saying you have to retrain or you have to enhance your existing workforce that delivers this instruction. How are you finding that? And to what extent do you think you're going to have to supplement with other instructors that perhaps have a different skill set?
Thank you for the question. So we've realized through this process of review and many lessons, as Sherry and I have walked through this, that the focus here is talking about the students and investing in the students. But we can only do that in an effective way if we first invest in the instructors. We feel that we've been slightly neglectful over the last sort of 3 decades in not bringing our instructors along with us and the technology and the modern times and giving them the skills they need, not just their operational experience, which is valuable, but the skills they need to instruct in modern and effective ways. We have a whole range of instructors who come from different backgrounds with different skill sets, but this is about bringing everyone up to the same level. So if you're a student, you know you're going to get this certain level of quality and delivery. And as you suggest, there are various tactics to do that. We have hired some new instructors from within transit and also outside transit, because instructors is field agnostic. To be a fantastic instructor, you don't have to necessarily have worked in transit to do that. So hiring has been part of the plan, no more so than the Senior Vice President in charge of technical training, Danielle, who works for me. She's got a background, she's brought a background from Baltimore utilities, as well as in an insurance company where she transformed the way they deliver training. So she's got a fascinating background, and we're trying to bring people like her into the instructor ranks. and we're investing in those individuals who are with us. And I feel like, some people welcome the change and some people you have to bring along with you. And that's a mix, but we're making really good progress.
All right, Chair Santos.
Thank you, Director Alcorn. Just a couple of zooming out for a second. Can you remind us when the center is going to open? And it is, my understanding is could you just describe where the center is and what it's replacing?
Sure. So, yeah. So we're aiming to open complete construction in 2029. There are obviously multiple steps to get there. And the key stage we're at now, which is an exciting stage, is next Tuesday, we should receive the designs, the 3 design options. Obviously, they are going to be dictated by where we want to prioritize our money. And then the location is Pensy Drive. So currently there's the Carmen Turner facility, which is a large, significant location for us where we deliver training and various other transit services for our organization, but it is, everyone would agree, it's outdated. And we're basically in the next block down towards New Carrollton is where this new site has been secured.
I think we took a field trip there, I believe, last year. And just to confirm that the training center is consolidating existing locations, correct? And therefore, that's part of what's driving the cost savings.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also consolidating not only locations, which is fantastic, but also technology, trainers. We're creating a hub of learning. So it's not just technical training, corporate training will be there. The police academy will have a presence there. So really creating an atmosphere, an environment of learning, which we hope will be a center where people from across the region will come to learn how to deliver training.
Thank you. And I'm glad to hear that it sounds like an example of good practices or best-in-class practices. And I'm heartened to hear that there's already thought about partnering with other entities in the region that either could use the facility, make for even more increased efficiencies. So.
Absolutely. And also, Leroy Jones was speaking earlier about, the partnerships. This will just be another way to manifest those partnerships permanently. So when there are tough times like the snowstorms, we know each other. There are relationships already established.
Great. Thank you, Chair Santos. Any other questions, comments from board members? Okay, seeing none, then we have no other items coming before the committee. So I'll turn the floor over to Mr. McAndrew to begin the Finance and Capital Committee meeting.
Thank you. That was a great committee session, Mr. Alcorn, and welcome. Close one, and we'll start another great committee session with this morning's Finance and Capital Committee meeting. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now, to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of our January 29th meeting before us for approval. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved. On to the agenda. We have 2 items on today's agenda. First, staff is asking for the committee's concurrence for several procurement items under the board's new procurement policy, which was adopted in November. Next, we'll be asked to approve the public hearing staff report and authorize changes to the mass transit plan for a proposed and exciting transit-oriented development at the Twin Brook Metro Station. I'll now go ahead and turn the floor over to our new CFO in the flesh, Mr. Rickard, to present the procurement item. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Mr. Chair and Madam Vice Chair. Our acting Senior Vice President of Procurement is on travel today, so won't be joining us. So it's my pleasure to bring before you today's procurement activity concurrence package in accordance with Board Resolution M 2025-01. Thank you. Procurement is a strategic enabler, and its activities support all aspects of Metro strategic goals. We have a total of 6 procurements to come before the committee today. As the committee is aware, the thresholds established on November 20th, 2025 require 3 categories of procurement to come before the committee for concurrence. These include first, new procurements of $15 million or more. Second, sole source contracts valued at $500,000 or greater. And third, change orders or modifications to existing contracts where the cumulative total of the current and all prior modifications exceeds $1 million or 10% of the original contract amount, whichever is greater. As mentioned, today's package includes 6 procurements, 1 in the first category, 2 in the second, and 3 in the third. We'll start going through them in detail on this slide and the next slide. First up is a new procurement proposed for engineering consulting services. Engineering consulting services support the railcar rehabilitation and scheduled maintenance program to keep rail cars in a state of good repair. Second on the list is a sole source award proposed to construct an automatic train control training lab to maintain staff knowledge and expertise on current signaling equipment. Third is a sole source award proposed to support the midlife overhaul and maintenance for up to 100 buses. And then 3 modifications. First is a modification to exercise option 1 of the heavy-duty transit buses contract proposed to purchase 75 40-foot diesel electric hybrid buses and 25 40-foot battery electric buses. Next is a modification to an existing contract proposed to add 64 additional OEM-approved brake parts for railcar maintenance. And finally, a modification to exercise option 2 of a staff augmentation contract is proposed to obtain support staff who are subject matter experts in the fields of engineering and quality assurance, regulatory compliance, and oversight. Mr. Chair, these are the 6 procurements before the committee this morning. Staff recommends Finance and Capital Committee concurrence pursuant to Board Resolution M 2025-01 for all contracts included in this package.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rickard. Are there any questions from committee members? Hearing none, any other questions for board members before we call the vote?
I just have one. Sorry. I'm looking at the automatic train control training lab, which is going to be a real, and we just had a conversation about consolidating all training locations. Is there going to be a need to incorporate this into the Pennsy Drive facility down the road, or do you anticipate it would stay at Dulles?
The thought is that this is going to stay at Dulles. It's a joint effort with MWA, and they're putting up the majority of the funding. So we believe this will stay at Dulles location.
Great, thank you.
I can give just quickly on that. Great answer. This is great. Dave's been here a month. He's already answering about the signals. But this is very specific to the circuits that are on Silver Line Phase 2. So that's why it's out of Dulles. So the people that are maintaining that part of the alignment. And so when we move to our next generation signaling system, that stuff would obviously be at our new training center, but this is literally for that part of the network.
Great question. Thank you. Hearing no other questions, I'll, before calling the vote, just say thank you again to staff for implementing this new approach to procurement and doing it very well. So thank you. I'd like to move approval. Can I get a second from committee member?
Second.
Perfect. Second. Seconded by Dr. Lowe. Unless there's any additional discussion, I'll ask Ms. Allison to call the vote.
Chair McAndrew.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowe.
Aye.
Director Flowers.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Perfect. Now on to that exciting transit-oriented development item at the Twin Brook Metro Station. Yay. I will hand it over to Ms. Rubin.
Hi there, good morning. Glad you're so excited for joint development. Okay. Yes, so approving today's compact public hearing staff report would advance joint development, which, as we know, generates ridership, economic value for the communities in which it serves, as well as the region. So specifically, we're seeking for an approval of the staff report for the proposed changes at the Metro Station, which will make amendments to the mass transit plan. So for brevity, I'll just say that we've been working on this effort for some time, anticipating joint development at this location. We've been working with the city of Rockville and and others within the jurisdiction to advance transit changes. So the transit changes include eliminating surface parking lot, relocating the bus loop, and eliminating the kiss and ride lot within the bus loop. This just gives an overview and an illustration of the potential future development at Twin Brook, which includes, in our illustration and projection, probably a mixed-use retail residential development along with the plaza at the southern end of it. The bus loop would be relocated to a street just south of the joint development site, and then the kiss and ride spaces would move to a curbside pickup and drop off within the right-of-way of Chapman Avenue. There's extensive outreach to the community for public hearings, as well as a multitude of ways for the community to submit their comments on the proposed changes. The report in particularly noted that there are two themes that were consistently repeated in the comments. They included the concern about removing the parking spaces, the surface parking lot. We have forecasted that those spaces can easily be absorbed in the garage deck adjacent to an already built at the station. So that we think we've addressed sufficiently. And then there's a lot of comments about pedestrian accessibility, which will come with the development and design of the new joint development itself. So today we're only seeking for approval of the staff report on the proposed changes and the changes to mass transit plan.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Rubin. As the good Governor Moore said yesterday at his State of the State, we're all about getting more Marylanders from home to work for economic prosperity, and that starts right now this session with putting more economic productivity and housing at our transit stations. So this comes at a perfect time for the state of Maryland, and I believe for Montgomery County as well, and our friends in Rockville. So any questions from committee members? Now, any questions from board members before we call the vote? Hearing none, I'd like to move approval. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded from Dr. Lowe. Unless there's any additional discussion, I'll ask Ms. Ellison to call the vote.
Chair McAndrew.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowe.
Aye.
Director Flowers.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
With no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned. I'll turn the floor over to Chair Santos with a request that the board convene an executive session.
Thank you, Director McAndrew. Before I convene us for executive session, just want to acknowledge that our fellow board colleague, April Rye, isn't here today. Just her appointment was terminated last Friday, and we look forward to honoring her and appreciating her service at the next board meeting along with Paul Smedberg. So it'll be a festive session. With that, in accordance with the bylaws, I, Valerie Santos, request that the Board of Directors convene an executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections: budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contracts, or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions or the federal government; audit matters and investigations to include, for example, audits of IT security matters and investigations to be referred for further criminal investigation or prosecution; and disposition of WMATA property to the acquisition of real property for WMATA purposes, where discussion in public would adversely affect WMATA's negotiating or bargaining position; and lastly, development of WMATA position or strategy on pending or proposed federal or state legislation. Is there a second? Director McAndrew, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Robust aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, the ayes have it. We are adjourned.